Rev up your engines!
Here's some car failures for 2019. The first one is the Chevrolet Blazer. It's a definite failure. For $45,000, you get a kind of odd-looking SUV that gets 18 miles a gallon in a city. Well, I guess they want to go back to the days of crappy gas mileage. I don't know. If you value money, stay away from the 2020 Chevy Blazer. And I do say 2020 because even though I'm talking about failures in 2019, realize that January, February, or March of 2019, they start selling 2020 models. So they've been out for a while, even though, it's still the end of 2019 right now. Car manufacturers are always got that BS hype that they're selling the year ahead models because they're in such a hurry to try to sell new stuff. Basically, it's all a lie. You might as well subtract a year from all the cars because they were made the year before, most of them. The next failure is the Toyota Supra. Yes, here's Scotty dishing Toyota. But really, people, I'm not dishing Toyota. I'm dishing BMW. It's just a BMW Roadster in disguise with Toyota emblems on them. They haven't sold that many of them. I don't know what Toyota was thinking there. I guess they just decided everybody wanted a Supra, but we don't feel like actually building one ourselves, so we'll buy them from BMW and call them Supras. They were a massive failure too. And I mean, they even had to recall them because all these welds were made wrong at the factory. A big on that one. The next failure, the Tesla Cybertruck. Okay, I'm kind of stretching things here because you can't really call something a failure that they don't really make. That was a mock-up, it's not an actually produced vehicle yet. So it's just so bizarre looking. Him doing the breaking the windshields and both of them shattered. It's kind of what's happening in American society is that hype takes over function, that they can just hype something enough that people get excited about it and they don't even care if it works anymore. It's just, oh wow, that was really great. Oh well, let's hype that thing up. Total hype. They haven't made him yet. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a failure the way it looks. The windows broke. I'm sure I'll make them eventually, but as an idea, if you ask me, it's a failure. At least the way it looks now. And the next failure, as far as I'm concerned, is the Mustang Mach-E. You're putting it on an SUV and it's an electric vehicle. That's cheating. It has nothing to do with a Mustang, right? And they're saying that, they've sold out a certain one, and that was the highest level one they made, not the whole line. And they're not saying how many they sold. So, another bunch of hype that people are throwing out of something that isn't even out yet. The Shelby GT500 now, that's making a comeback, the gasoline real Mustang car, not an SUV. They've kept the Mustang thing going, but if you ask me, Ford's watering their name down there by doing stuff like that, just like Jeep selling the Jeep Renegade. We're going to be Renegades. The Jeep Renegade, anybody who knows vehicles, is just a rebadged fancy Fiat 500 four-wheel drive vehicle. It has nothing to do with Jeep whatsoever. I mean, an electric SUV, what does it have to do with Mustangs? As far as I'm concerned, nothing. Maybe they'll work okay, maybe they won't. I don't know. But trying to change the name of a Mustang car into an SUV that's an electric car, hey, running on fumes if you ask me on that one. And the next big failure, the Chevy Silverado with the 4-cylinder engine. Now, what were these guys thinking? You got guys who want a big pickup truck, right? Generally in the United States, they want a big V8 engine to go with that. Put on dualies, make a nice rumbly sound, or at least have V6 engines that are turbocharged and put out 300-something horsepower, not some piddly little 4-cylinder engine. Now, theoretically, the 4-cylinder engine gets better gas mileage than a lot. But the guys that use a heavy truck to pull stuff, to haul stuff from the bed, to drive them hard, they actually get worse gas mileage with the 4-cylinder engine than they will with the 8 because the 4-cylinder engine will be overtaxed. Anybody can see that. Now, whatever guy at GM thought, let's make a big pickup truck with a 4-cylinder engine, they must have rocks in their heads. So that was another big failure, the 4-cylinder Silverado. Well, if anybody's going to do it, the Russians would do it. Have you seen that video? There is a guy in Moscow who has made a copy of a Tesla Cybertruck, and he's driving around Moscow in this thing. Of course, I guess they don't care much about patent laws there in Russia, so what the heck. It kind of brings up something. He's actually driving it around. The Europeans are already talking about it, is that with all those angles, sharp angles that they built that truck, at least the mock-up, that they may not allow them in Europe if they build them like that because they're too dangerous for pedestrians. They're saying that those things with all those sharp angles are going to be death traps if they hit people when they're going down the road with all these rough angles on them. Because I guess Elon wasn't thinking my space age idea might not be too practical in the real world if it runs into people. Yeah, I mean, they got all kinds of regulations in Europe for all kinds of things, for the sounds cars can make, the shapes they can be, the speeds they can go. They have speed regulations and stuff. So something like that, hey, if it's that angular, yeah, and it starts killing pedestrians, I mean, it's not going to be the greatest vehicle in the world, but hey, this guy in Moscow, maybe next the Chinese is copying. But I doubt it, because the Chinese have some deal going with Tesla. They got that Supra factory in China now. Recently, he's just starting up making cars, so they'll just make the real thing in China. They wouldn't even have to copy it now. Timmy Piano says, Scotty, I bought an '01 Oldsmobile Aurora, second generation. What do you know? Are they decent? Hoping to keep it a while. It's a work car. Not a bad idea as a work car. It's a 19-year-old Oldsmobile, okay? It doesn't burn much oil, and if the transmission shifts okay, baby the thing as a work car. I'm sure you didn't pay that much because they're not really worth anything, those old Oldsmobiles. There's still parts available for them. They can be decent cars. I'm assuming you got that V6 engine, and it's a decent engine. The engine's going to last quite some time. And if it's 19 years old and it's still going down the road, whoever owned it before must have been taking care of it, so just change the oil and filter regularly. Don't race around. The problem with those basically is the engine has more power than a transmission, so if you drive like a lunatic, you'll burn the transmission out and it'll be the end of the car. So baby it, you never know. Could last quite some time. King is good, says Scotty. It's kind of stupid, but will dimming the dashboard and GPS lights lessen the load on car battery? Setting it to the lowest brightness to lessen electrical load in your car. Well, to an infinitesimal degree, yes. A little tiny bit. It'd be like doing some kind of modification to your car and finding that you got 1/1000th of a mile per gallon better gas mileage. That tiny amount of power that's using that. It's like the guys that'll say, oh, I'm going to put LED lights all over my car because they use less power. They do. But it's such a tiny amount of power. It really isn't going to make any difference. Now, the only true advantage of the LEDs is you can make them whatever color you want. And since they burn at such a lower temperature, they can last basically forever. A lot of the LEDs can go 100, 200,000 hours of operating. You know, you'll never get that out of a filament bulb. Eventually, the filament's going to burn out, or the vibrations of the road's going to break the thin filament that's in there. So you're not going to really get better gas mileage or use that much less power just by dimming those lights a little bit. Kijun7 says, Scotty, I got an 18 Toyota Corolla. I do part-time rideshare. I did oil change, fully synthetic. Wonder how many miles should I do the oil change? It has 23,000 miles. When should I do transmission oil change? All right, we'll go to the transmission oil change first. I would change that just on a conservative side. I change it every 60,000 miles, and make sure you use the Toyota fluid. It doesn't cost all that much more. You put full synthetic oil in. You got to figure out how you're driving. Now, if you're doing city driving, full city driving, stop and go, I don't care if it's synthetic oil or not, I would still change it every 5,000 to 7,000 miles if you're doing regular stop and go driving. Now, if you do a lot of highway driving at 65 miles an hour, you could bump it up to 10,000 mile oil changes because there's a lot less wear on the highway than there is in the city. But if you're like a taxi cab and you're doing a lot of stop and go city driving, I change it every 5,000 to 7,000 miles, even with synthetic oil. Realize oil is cheap, engines are expensive. Learn how to change it yourself because you can't trust people these days. I've had customers go to oil change places and they leave it loose and it leaks out, or the filter wasn't changed, and then all that extra quart of oil dirt that's in there stays because they didn't change the filter. Best to learn to do it yourself. Then you know it's done right, and then you can buy the quality oil, and you know you're getting a quality oil. A lot of these oil change places, they got what's called bulk oil. It's just a giant container that they pump it out of. Who knows what's in there? Jackie Childs asks, Scotty, which vehicle would have less problems, Chevy Traverse or Nissan Pathfinder? All right, I'm not a fan of either of those, but out of those, by far the Pathfinder, because I have had customers buy Nissan Pathfinders, and they're excellent vehicles for the first 100,000 miles. As they get older, they can get real expensive to repair, but they're really cheap to get done. That's why you can get like a 12, 13-year-old Pathfinder for $1,000 all day long. Most areas, they just don't hold up as they get older and older, and the newer ones are cheaper made than the older ones. So, you know, buying a new one, it'd be kind of silly because you'd be paying too much money. You'd be better off buying a Toyota or a Honda for that kind of money that's going to last and last versus the Nissan. The Chevy's just an absolute pile of junk. You wouldn't want to buy one of those any way you look at it, new, used, whatever. Milo Shatata says, Scotty, I did a valve adjustment myself on a 2014 Honda Civic. After a couple of days, the car started jerking on low acceleration. There's two things that you want to look for. The first is look in the area that you worked. You had to take the valve cover off, check around there. You might have pinched wires. I've even done that myself on some tight working thing. When you put the valve cover back on, you pinch a wire accidentally and then it starts running poorly, so check that. Now, if you don't find anything wrong with that, and this isn't just a coincidence, I would take the valve cover off and I'd recheck the valve lash, because if you made a mistake on some of them, you have to adjust the valves on those cars all exactly the same. And if some of them are off, it's going to lead to kind of jerky, herky-jerky stuff. So go back and at least just check all of the valves. It could be that you made some too tight or some too loose, because I've seen that happen before. You got, 16 valves. Odds are you could have made a tiny mistake on one of them. So go through them all first. Now, if it's neither of those, it could just be a coincidence. It could be you got a clogged fuel filter, clogged air filter. Could be your fuel injectors are dirty and need cleaning. It's an older car. Try all that stuff. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.